called Carolo. And I wanted to point out that we have some multiple organ systems. I would say that the brain is a very sentinel thing, and on my computer, I have 26 different publications of how this more comprehensive nutrition that is available that incorporates all the research that this company raised $20 million to do a effort with the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, to make a new drug from the active ingredient aloe vera, and adding this to your diet increased brain function in ways that was hard to believe. But in addition to how important the brain is the heart. And I might add that we've had multiple individuals that were on the waiting list for a heart transplant due to myocarditis or multiple heart attacks, that these people came off the waiting list for a heart because the generation of millions of adult stem cells regenerated the functional of the heart to the point they no longer qualified for a heart transplant. And right close to us right here in my office, there's an individual that's about 10 years post having been qualified for a heart transplant, but he never has had a heart transplant because of adding this to his diet. Then we've had another organ that is extremely important. Of course, all organs functions are important, but I'm giving the major ones is the kidneys, and we've had multiple individuals, particularly from type 2 diabetes and the atherosclerosis that accelerated type that affects the kidneys, that they were on the waiting list for a kidney transplant, but they got on this more comprehensive nutrition that is available through New Eden, again, that incorporates all the research that Carrington Laboratories did on the aloe leaf gel uh, key ingredient that the plant makes, that their kidney function was restored to the point they no longer needed a kidney transplant. And
Wow.
then we had type 2 and type 1 diabetics that you can't do a transplant of the
Mhm.
little cells in the pancreas. However, I had a colleague down at the University of Texas at San Antonio that was an expert in mouse Coxsackie virus causes diabetes, and he was able to show that by adding this to the diet, that the body generates millions of adult stem cells that migrate into the pancreas and regenerate the beta cells that make insulin. And we had type 1 diabetes as well as type 2 diabetes that this went away. Well, we're going to focus on the lungs, which is another extremely important organ on this session. And I particularly recalled a telephone call I had from a nurse whose mother was confined to bed with chronic lung disease and had a mask with increased oxygen. And even with the increased oxygen, her saturation of hemoglobin was in the high 60s. And
Oh
just
my
by
God.
adding this to her diet, that it went up into the 90s
Wow.
just by adding this to the diet. So the major organs that seem to fail as people age, which gets to be 100% population. I haven't met anybody yet that is not going to participate in the aging
Right.
process. That what we're talking about has restored function into multiple organs. And so I hope that when people hear these various lectures that we give, you realize that by adding to your diet the active ingredient from the aloe, which Carrington Laboratories spent millions of dollars trying to make a drug and got thrown out of the FDA because
Mhm.
one, we could show no toxicity, and that is pharmaceutical heresy. Uh,
Mhm.
the father of pharmacology is called Paracelsus, and his most famous quote was, "All drugs are poisons. The benefit depends on the dose." End of quote. Well, that's because pharmaceutical drugs interfere with the engineering and design of life to suppress symptoms.
Mhm.
Whereas we had a second reason we were thrown out of the FDA is that every organ that was failing and had problems, that the individuals got a benefit that I just got through outlining to you, again, is pharmaceutical heresy. There's an old saying in medicine, one drug, one disease, that there are no panaceas. Well, this exceeds any mythological or scientific panacea you ever thought of because it supports the engineering and design of life that is coded in the DNA or the chromosomes that control cellular synthesis or assembly of bioactive compounds that operate the biochemistry and physiology of life. So that's what we're talking about. And by adding this to your diet, and why should you consider this? Well, when I was a kid in the 1940s, nearly all grocery stores were owned by a local family, and only about 4 to 6 weeks of a year were there multiple fruits and vegetables that you could have during the growing season because very few things more than 50 miles from the grocery store they would offer. However, right now we have national grocery chains and agribusiness that makes it possible to have watermelon, raspberries, strawberries, various kinds of fruits and vegetables 12 months of the year. How do they do this? They follow the growing season across the country, and to have a shipping life and a shelf life that they pick the fruits and vegetables when they're green. And when you pick them with the green, their principal molecule in the produce is chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is wonderful, amazing stuff, but it's just not required by the genes in the assembly inside your cells to make bioactive molecules to run the normal biochemistry and physiology of life. And so our powders that are in New Eden, which is our dietary supplement that now I have almost 37 years of focus on trying to improve it for the benefits of the body because we had all this research that academic institutions were doing for Carrington Laboratories, and they were able to show that in the second step of cellular synthesis, that 9 molecules of acetylated mannose, that's the active ingredient in the aloe leaf gel, are in the endoplasmic reticulum. The 9 molecules and 3 chains make a membrane domain on all cells of the body for cell to cell communication and instructions. And apparently, this domain is far more powerful than we initially even dreamed that it could be. And evidence suggests that this supports the biochemistry of all your major uh, organ systems to work better, and to we're just replacing in the diet what was common in the family garden or orchard
Mhm.
when years ago, but nearly all our orchards and gardens are replaced by another
Big
house,
pharma.
parking
Yeah.
lot, or some business. So this is very important to add to your diet because you're just restoring to your diet what was common in the family garden in archery. So with that, I hope you will recall that my first awakening to how important this can be in the pulmonary function of our lungs, that the nurse called me about her mother could bring more oxygen into her blood to go to all the organs in the body and all the cells just by adding this to the diet.
It's amazing. I know I have friends that, have listened to and seen the research that you have, and I've shared it with them, and they're seeing results as well. Whether it's with their nervous system improving or different things. So, well, should we jump into this pulmonary lung function video? And I will ask everybody, if you're in the live chat, if you'd like to ask Dr. McDaniel a question, please put those in all caps, and I will save those for when we come back at the end of the video.
But our dietary supplement, New Eden, puts back into your diet molecules that your genes require for optimal health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so your body's healing itself, right? Okay, well, let's get started, and then we'll be right back right after this video with live question Q&A opportunity with Dr. Reg McDaniel.
Today's lecture, we might reflect a few moments on what are we trying to do and what is the purpose of these lectures that we hope that people will go to the web and at their time that they're available, go through them and pay attention to them. The first thing I would say is that the World Health Organization monitors and overlooks the status of health in all the member nations of the United Nations. And they release the figures that the number one cost of all the nations is in the United States. And the figures that I had was $10,300 per citizen per year, rapidly increasing. I saw a note somewhere in a publication recently that's already elevated to about 12,000, but I haven't formally seen that. But periodically, the World Health Organization does a survey of the quality of life and health status of the nations. And the United States came in number one in healthcare cost and number 35th the last time they did a survey in the quality of life and health. So number one in cost, 35 in benefits. Unfortunately, in the United States, the cost of healthcare is exorbitant, all the way from drugs to if you have to go into the hospital, if a regular room can take up the rest of your earning capacity until you retire, and if you have to go to ICU and surgery and spend some time there, it can be more expensive than you can earn in a lifetime. I am not opposed to capitalism and free enterprise, but I am opposed to exploitive pricing, which is what we face. Now, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act was passed in 1994, and that was just one of the numerous efforts that have been done to try to decrease healthcare costs while elevating quality of life. And this has been fought by the sickness industry time and time again when efforts to change this picture that I told you. But you've got in your own ability to improve your personal and your family choice of food and the amounts and the type of food that you eat that is in harmony with the engineering and design of life that is coded in your genes. In the preamble to the Dietary Supplement Act, which was to make natural products available to citizens, the preamble states that optimal nutrition is essential for good health, to prevent disease, and to restore health. Right quickly, you'd say, well, what more would you want from nutrition, which each of us have control of? And I can tell you right quickly, you'd like for it to be in the law. Uh, there was a great celebration over this statement in the preamble, but that's not part of the law. That's just a statement that the congressional people put on there of why they had hearings and considered this legislation. In the labeling section of the Dietary Supplement Act, which is also called the DSHEA legislation, in the labeling section, I paraphrase again, it states that only a government-approved pharmaceutical, FDA-approved drug can represent or claim to treat, cure, mitigate a disease or syndrome, or correct an abnormal health condition. And that is avidly enforced by the Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA. And in fact, a international dietary supplement company that I was a medical director for a decade was fined approximately $10 million for its distributors showing individuals and making claims that they said they wouldn't make to improve health with a natural product that is not a government approved drug. But you don't have to get involved in something like that. But I have 36 years now involved, starting with research on why has the aloe vera leaf gel been used for over 5,000 years by multiple societies for multiple health supporting activities. And a company, Carrington Laboratories, raised $20 million to try to make a new drug under the FDA of the active ingredient from the aloe vera leaf gel. Well, unfortunately, though they had 12 academic institutions meeting all the research requirements of the Food and Drug Administration, the new drug application was thrown out for one, no toxicity or adverse side effects whatsoever could be shown in multiple animal studies and also in humans. Number two, it didn't matter whether the deviation from normal health was physical, mental, or emotional. If you added the active ingredient from the aloe to the diet, there was significant improvement. And it's not a drug, and we don't claim to treat, cure, or mitigate any disease or abnormal health condition. All we do is optimize nutrition and turn it over to the genes that control cellular synthesis to make bioactive compounds by hooking together these nutrients to make biochemical compounds that operate the biochemistry and the physiology of normal health. So you can, with your personal choices and with your family, have the power and the opportunity to optimize the health of your family, decrease healthcare costs while increasing quality of life. And I hope that I can be your servant and messenger to bring this message to you, because I didn't develop anything new. All this information about the power of more comprehensive nutrition is very ancient. You can find it in the Hebrew scriptures. You can find it in Sanskrit from India, and you can find it in so-called statements by Confucius in China of the power of nutrition to optimize the quality of life. And this in turn decreases the costs, not only for your family, but if you're in business or in an employee in a group and their premiums just keep rising because of this exploitation of health costs, you can, if a group were to go into more comprehensive nutrition, you can decrease healthcare costs for everyone and increase quality of life. So with that, this next lecture is focused on the benefits we've had of experience of more comprehensive nutrition and how it influences our lungs and pulmonary function. So with that, we'll get started with the lecture. Thank you. I just got through stating that we would focus on pulmonary function and the benefits we have observed with more comprehensive nutrition built around the active ingredient from aloe leaf gel, which was found by academic institutions to be acetylated mannose, which for short is called ACE-mannan. And by adding this to your diet, I now have 36 going into 37th year of working with the formulation, trying to improve it, to put into the modern diet nutrients that are no longer present in the modern food chain because we plowed up our family gardens and chopped down our orchards, and agriculture follows the growth zones across the nation. And unfortunately, to have a shipping life and a shelf life, they pick it green when the principal molecule in the fruit and vegetables is chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is wonderful stuff. It's amazing what it does in terms of capturing energy from the sun that starts energy for our planet. However, our genes do not require chlorophyll as a nutrient to make bioactive compounds to run the biochemistry of life. And this decreases healthcare costs. In fact, we have a study where there were 281 type 2 diabetics at a clinic at Air Force Base, and another group of approximately 281 where the physician thought comprehensive nutrition was a bunch of hokum, and all he used was drugs. Well, by not denying the test group any drug they needed, but adding more comprehensive nutrition that we'll be talking about today, the decrease in cost of the 281 was 40% per year compared to the comparison group that only had drugs. So with that, we will go to the next slide. And this is an interesting story that Dr. Reason from Loma Linda School of Medicine in the pediatric department, husband was a childhood asthmatic. And usually the asthma goes away when they become adults. However, in his case, even as an adult, he still had asthmatic attacks until by good luck or fortune of some nature, he tried the dietary supplements that we had in the early 1900s and early 2000, built around the aloe ACE-mannan, and he quit having serious asthma. But due to this, she wanted to have a study done in the pediatric department, and so we worked with her, and this is the title of the paper she published. It's titled A Random Open Label, meaning there's no controls. They just compare it to how well they improve as an individual on the effects of standard asthma treatment. They weren't denied any asthma treatments, but they had the combination of the glyconutrients, glyco meaning Greek for sweet, or sugars, which is the active ingredient from the aloe plant, and other plant molecules that are placed in the plant kingdom that our genes call for to properly synthesize and hook together nutrient molecules to make the compounds, and what all this did for the asthma patients. And you see the other people on her staff that worked with her. So this is an example of the type of data that was collected, and they hooked the children up to a mask, and you can see they had two different groups, and they have them breathe into this, and they have a device there that tells about the airflow that they're able to do, and you'll have the baseline flow, which was 360 for the first patient there in table 1, and at 6 months it was 400. If you will go down, you will see that at 1, 3, 4, and 6 months that the ability of these children to move more ambient air through their lungs increased as the months increased that they were taking the alloace-mannan, which supports the engineering and design of life that is coded in the genes. And this is just an example of data that they collected on these patients. Now, they had 32 patients, which 25 completed the study. And group 1 had more comprehensive nutrition. That's what the MCN stands for. And only their common therapy. And then the second group had 6 months of more comprehensive nutrition. And in the third month, they added the common therapy. And you can see in the clear bar graphs that the percent above baseline leaped in the group 1, and you can see it increased even more in the group 2, which are the black ones. But even at 6 months, they were doing better than they did when they started. So that's the bar graph to interpret the multiple measurements you saw in the first slide. This was a case report by an adult medical doctor, Dr. Purcell, and he had 2 patients, and he did this peak flow of the patients, and they started out, if you'll see there, subject 1 was 170 cc's of air could be moved to start with, and the second patient really had bad lungs. They could only move 70 cc's of air, and after a month on supplementation, patient adult 1 went from 175 to 275 cc's when they breathed into the machine. And lo and behold, patient number 2 went to 400 cc's. And at the end of 8 months, more comprehensive nutrition, they maintained their ability to move more oxygen. And so this is very healthy. And so these patients don't go around feeling like they're trying to breathe through say a wet cloth that cuts off their ability to breathe. That's what patients have told me. They'd say if you would take a wet cloth, put it up to your face and try to breathe through it, or get it real close, and then when you breathe it, you touch and it just cuts off your breath. This is what asthmatics live with, and one of the reasons they carry around these little devices in their pocket to try to dilate their lungs. But this is maintaining the ability to move room air through the lungs, and the improvement with more comprehensive nutrition. This is another patient study. It was very interesting that a nurse working on her master's degree, Mary Vanderwall, selected with her faculty advisor, Dr. Pippinger, cystic fibrosis patients. And this is one of the worst maladies that is a gene caused problems. And they had 91 patients with cystic fibrosis. And the number that, while during this study, that they seemed to get worse was only 2.2%. They didn't seem to respond to more comprehensive comprehensive nutrition. But the number that is just static was 25%, but mildly improved was nearly 31%. Moderately, as mildly improved, the moderately improved was nearly 20%, 18 out of 91, and greatly improved was nearly 22%. So we had a total number reporting improvement of 72.5%. Hey, that's pretty good for anything you're trying to do in medicine to try to help people. They can't move air in out of their lungs, but these children also have cystic fibrosis because they have such thick mucus that they have digestive problems. And I really wasn't aware of this before these patients, but there was an 81% improvement in their gastrointestinal symptoms that they have from cystic fibrosis, which results in very thick mucus, and that they can't clear it out of their lungs, and they also, their GI tract doesn't work right. It's very lazy and difficult, and constipation is common. And this really improved this genetic defect. The abstract from this study and the children that they did a post-marketing survey, and the quality of life was improved by the addition of the glyconutritionals or dietary supplements based on the active ingredient from aloe, which is acetylated mannose, a sugar. They had a survey of 271, was distributed, and 98 returned the results and participated in the study. So there was a 36.1% response rate, just inviting people to be in the children to be in the study. That there were 3 that they didn't use their data because they were incomplete or they failure. In other words, they've got to meet certain criteria to be considered that they're really doing the more comprehensive nutrition. And we showed you the percentages of improvement of lung function and digestive function. And they were rated as whether they got no improvement, whether they had mild improvement, moderate, or great improvement, as we showed you. That the analysis that 85.3% of those respondents that followed through with the study experienced a change and improvement in symptoms, and that the digestive symptoms were 81.1% and the lung 72.5%. Only 2 out of all of these patients said that they didn't get better. So so they discontinued the supplement, and in our experience, if they would have continued, even they might have in time started doing better. Now, this abstract that they put together for this study, that they didn't have any toxicity or untoward side effects. Their cystic fibrosis didn't get worse. And in fact, we had some that they quit culturing Pseudomonas, which is the terrible bacteria that destroys lung tissue. But they felt like that what you should do is continue the medical treatment that the physicians or pediatricians do. We don't claim to treat, cure, mitigate disease. All we do is improve their nutrition. But you should continue to the cystic fibrosis treatment, but add to it the dietary supplementation, which is something we've seen time and time again, how much better they do. And this is a little table that, again, that we've mentioned before, that the by the 95 patients that the lung symptoms improved in 72.5%, and the digestive symptoms of the GI tract improved 81.1%, which is incredible. And in fact, there was a family in Canada that had 3 or 4 daughters with cystic fibrosis. And I recently had an email from the father about how well 2 of them have done, are now married and have a virtually normal life, which is very unusual. Unfortunately, one of them did not respond as well as the other 2, and as is all too common, she had an early death. So 2 out of 3 doing quite well is pretty good. Now, this next study is from the University of California at Irvine. And when I was visiting there with the infectious disease specialist, Dr. Darrell C., on the shelves, they had a bunch of stacks of computer output, long sheets that are stacked up. And I said, "What is that?" And he said, "Well, we had a public health department grant here that the university was to do in vitro, and in vitro means in the laboratory, screening of 196 natural products for potential toxicity and benefit." And this was an early stage of the dietary supplement industry getting going after passage of the Deshay Act in 1994. And you can see there the people that worked with Dr. Darrell C. on this. And this is the summary of the 196 products. And this is in the appendix. And they had 6 tests that they did with samples of the 196 ingredients and formulations. And they had a test for liver toxicity. They had a test for potential bone marrow toxicity of what it did to the peripheral blood picture. And then they did an enzyme, because the P450 enzyme of the liver is an enzyme that detoxifies many toxic chemicals. And you'll notice between the asterisks that there was no toxicity or P450 effect, and the 3 tests for efficacy or benefits were positive on these products below. One was just aloe powder, one was garlic powder, and then there was formula 48, 49, and 51. And what excited us over this is that for benefits, they tested in cultures the effect on natural killer cells. Did it increase natural killer cell activity, which destroys viruses, bacteria, and even in some patients, apparently malignant cells. And then there was a test for glutathione production. That's what GSH stands for. And that is a little cloud of material that quenches or binds free radicals and nascent oxygen. That is a little cloud around all the mitochondria, because the mitochondria, which is the source of energy to the cell, processes glucose and transfers energy from the bond between the carbon atoms to adenosine triphosphate, ATP, which is the energy molecule that runs our body. And so that's a very important function inside the cell, in addition to the natural killer cell. And then they tested it for antiviral activity. So those were the 3 benefits or efficacy tests. And then there were the three to the left, evidence of toxicity that are frequently applied to pharmaceutical drugs. And so they applied all of these to these dietary supplements. Well, Formula 48, 49, and 51, I was involved in with the dietary supplement company that I have, and this is the generic term for them. But what it was is that 48, 49, 51 were the aloe ace mannin from the aloe leaf gel formulation, plant sterols, primarily Mexican yams, and that support more efficacious hormone balance in the body. And then the other one was the freeze-dried phytonutrients from vegetables and fruit. In other words, you take the pulp from vegetables and fruit, you freeze it and put it in a vacuum to remove the water to make a powder. And back in the 1930s, they found out that even enzymes retained their activity. So the bioactivity by freeze drying is retained in the vegetables and fruit. So you allow the vegetable or fruit to mature on the plant so that the genes in the plant can put the nutrients that the genes call for in cellular synthesis to make the bioactive compounds to run the biochemistry of life. Well, the key ingredients in 48, 49, 51 were all combined in 209 to make New Eden formulation that is what we time and time again tell you is available by web. If you want to elevate your personal and your family health status, I'll give you an example. My wife is a physician, and she pointed out recently that we had been married nearly 30 years, and I had never missed a day of work, that I'd never had the flu or any kind of crud that floats around in the hospital. And I have been taking the aloe ace mannin particularly, but also combined with the sterols and the phytonutrients for decades. And so I am a walking example of decreased healthcare costs. I don't have to go to the doctor or the clinic or the hospital, and certainly haven't been in ICU with just the price of dietary supplement. Anyway, this 196 ingredients and formulations that were on the market in the United States were all tested for three potential sources of toxicity and untoward side effects, and for three that I showed you very positive health benefits. And the formula that we were making available to the public, formulas 48, 49, 51, had no toxicity, just like the aloe, the garlic, and it had natural killer cell activity increased, the glutathione production was increased, and the antiviral activity was shown to increase. Now, to end this pulmonary story that I've been sharing with you, I want to end with this case report. And there was a young lady that was a biostatistician that was teaching biostatistics at the medical school in Oklahoma, Tulsa, and she was also a pre-med student. And she went to Oklahoma State University School of Medicine. And the case report is that she had a daughter, a female, 8-year-old Rosie. And Rosie, at 8 years of old, had nearly died twice in ICU from severe asthma attacks. And they were triggered by multiple things like dust in the air, pollen and other products when the weather changes, certain foods, and even going out and it's extreme change in temperature could cause her to have trouble being able to move the air because you have bronchospasm and you can't move the air in and out to your lungs. But the worst thing that can happen is you can get what's called status asthmaticus. And this is so bad that you're put in ICU. And the problem is that the heart rate is over 200. Fact is, if I recall correctly, Rosie's were up to 240 beats per minute. And of course, the normal resting is around 60 and maybe as high as 90 if you're moving around. But with athletic activity, it'll go higher. But at rest, around 60 beats per minute. Here she's 200 plus. And looking in the literature at this time, it reported with a Google search that 15,000 children a year die from cardiac fatigue due to status asthmaticus. Their heart just gets so worn out and tired and fatigued that it causes death in these children. Well, Rosie had been in the ICU twice with this. Well, her mother was going through Dallas-Fort Worth Medical Center as a potential post-medical school site to get additional clinical training. And she noted scientific posters on the walls in the halls from research that as a consultant to Carrington Laboratories, we had presented at multiple medical and scientific conferences. And she was a smart little girl. And she said, this might help Rosie. And so she started Rosie on the aloe mannan formulation orally in 1991. It is now 2023. She's never been in a doctor's office again for asthma attack. She's never been in the emergency room for asthma attack. Fact is, she hadn't had any asthma attacks and certainly hadn't been in ICU. She continued to grow up, went through pregnancy. That child is now 20, and the doctors were uneasy watching her real close, but it didn't cause any pulmonary problems. And she rarely now takes a hand puffer for her asthma when we're having some of these northern high winds bringing in various allergens that affect people with itchy eyes and itchy nose, and raises terrible benefits with asthma patients. Well, the bottom line to this story, which is the actual one that I participated in, is that the aloe mannan worked so well for Rosie. Her mother, Dr. Candice, is now Dr. Candice McDaniel. It worked so well for Rosie. Your mother and I got married, and that was 30 years ago that we got married. And I think that pretty well is the end of trying to share with you the marvelous benefits that people have had with more comprehensive nutrition that improve quality of life while decreasing healthcare costs in common and even genetic problems that compromise lung function. So with that, I hope you realize that by adding this to your diet, you add nutrient molecules that are no longer in the modern health chain of nutrients, and that you can personally and for your family decrease healthcare costs while increasing quality of life. Before
That is quite a story. I love that story. And I got the privilege of meeting your beautiful wife in Texas when I came down to meet you the first time. And I love hearing that she went to OSU. That's the college that I went to. So go Pokes. I'll have to tell her that. But I think it's really awesome that you can see this legacy of where her daughter, thank goodness her mom, looked at the data. She was a biostatistician. So she looked at the data and really evaluated. And, when your mother and your child is sick, or any parent and your child is sick, you will fight tooth and nail and do everything you can to help your children. And so for her to be, so proactive, and then this bring you guys together, and now you've got to see her daughter, your stepdaughter, grow up and have children of her own and live a mostly healthy life. It just has to be so affirming for these products and all that you do when you saw such a sick little girl at the beginning.
Let me add to this. This last Sunday, we had the family all get together and a big 6-layer cake. And Rosie now is pregnant again.
Oh, awesome.
And she didn't tell anybody what sex the child would be. And they had napkins, boy or girl. And her husband and her with a big knife cut into the cake. And if there were a little chamber of blueberries in it, it was going to be a boy.
Oh, okay.
And if it was strawberries, it was going to be a girl. And of course, we all gathered around and they cut into it. I had never seen this little event in any manner all these years. And it was filled with strawberries. So she's going to have a little girl.
Oh, how exciting. Well, congratulations to you guys. That's just, it's a wonderful story to hear about, there's such longevity in this product, and so many people have been, their lives have been improved by increasing that micronutrition that you're talking to us about. And then just to see it play out in real life like that and see the quality of life that she's having now is just really impactful. So thanks for sharing that personal story with us. I think those are the kind of things I think that people will really listen and wake up and think about somebody in their life that has pulmonary and lung function issues, somebody that's struggling with diabetes. I know recently I reached out to you for some of the reports and information stats that you have on the improvement of and how the effects of with children with diabetes, because I have a friend who their child was recently diagnosed, and we talked about how important it is to start this micronutrition right away. And so it's great. We see so much disease in our world today, and there are answers and there are some solutions. So thank you for continuing to advocate for this with us. And I hope everyone will share this video and get this out to anyone you can think of that's struggling with some of these issues, that the micronutrition might help their body to recover itself in that way.
Well, one of the big problems that we face in this nation is, for example, on television ads, there are two big groups. One is promoting food of various times, and it's for a very high instance of fresh fried franchise, which is not very healthy and certainly doesn't give you a broad choice of the phytonutrients. Fact is, in this research back starting in the 1985, one of the first things I recognized that I started asking the question, how did this come to be that in the plant kingdom, the nutrient molecules are present that our genes call for in cellular synthesis to assemble bioactive compounds that run the biochemistry of life? It's present in all the plants. If you have a broad diet of not only fruits and vegetables that are plant matured so that they have opportunity for the plant genes to put the nutrients in the produce, and of course with our dietary supplement, we only use plant matured, and we freeze dry it and you put it in a vacuum, and this preserves the bioactivity of the phytonutrients that are in the plants. But how did it come to be that in the plant kingdom, what the animal genes require for nutrients in cellular synthesis to be able to have optimal health? And I'm trying to get this across to your people that
Mhm.
the reason that we have such high health costs in the United States is that we ignore the reality that we need a more comprehensive nutrition, and it's hard to get it. It's not in the grocery store.
Right.
These molecules have to be found in the dietary supplements that give your genes what you require to move the biochemistry to the normal zone. We don't treat, cure, mitigate disease. All we do is optimize nutrition and turn it over to the genes to utilize these nutrient molecules. And it's never ceases to amaze me. And as I frequently say, how in the world did this come to be? And over and over again through the years, as I learned more and more about how cells are divine and work, and I would ask, how in the world did this come to be so intricate uh, uh, function inside every cell? And as I say, there's no question that there is a creative, organizing, and designing power active in the universe that is the source for answering the question, how did this come to be? And I'm trying to get this across to as many people as possible. And I appreciate the opportunity to share this with your people.
Yeah, and even on the bottle it says, don't take this without spirit or soul or something like that, to really remind people to connect with that higher power, God, universe, whatever that is for you personally, so that you understand that power is there, and that's what you should connect with. I have a question from Clint Westwood. He says, how many scoops per day should someone take of the nutritional support product?
Well, that's a good question, and it varies greatly
Mm.
with individuals. If you have really no health challenge, probably a scoop uh, before or with meals, optimally taken in yogurt because it's a powder. And I have done a monthly newsletter on why yogurt is so important, because there's worldwide research on the contributions to health that the bacteria in the large bowel contribute to processing the food that we eat to make it available. And so for a maintenance, and that's not a minor thing. When I talk about it supports the major organs like the brain, the heart, the kidneys, and the lungs and the beta cells in the pancreas. Then the other systems of the body, like the immune system, which is host defense against all infectious agents, that's also supported. And the hormonal system is optimally supported by more balanced nutrition. Every system works better with more comprehensive nutrition, which trying to get across, which each individual has ability to take charge of this, and you don't need a professional or a very expensive intervention by someone outside the family to optimize your health of the family. And in so doing, you decrease healthcare costs while increasing quality of life. Now, if somebody has a very serious disease, I frequently tell them that to start out with for at least the first month, that at each meal to take 2 scoops plus 2 scoops at bedtime, again, as many times as possible in yogurt, to support the what they call the biofarm that is present inside your GI tract. to process nutrients optimally for the body. And depending on the cost, after the first month, that's 8 a day. That's a significant amount. Uh, you Depending on how serious the disease is, if you're seeing benefits in a month, and frequently we'll get reports that people start seeing benefits in 2 to 3 weeks,
Right.
you can start trying to lower or titrate. What does it, how much does it take to continue improvements? And if it's really serious, I say don't stop the 8 a day until you have either scans or blood results or x-rays that show that you're having benefits that are objective. And then you can start trying to titrate down. How much does it take to keep improving the quality of your problems? So it varies. I'm sorry I can't give you, as people, as being a human being, you like a real set amount, but each one of us is different. Our genes are, the fact is, they say there are about 8 billion people in the world now. Not a one of them have the same genetic makeup. It's quite complex, and I won't go into it. But no one has ever lived, is living today, or probably would be born that have exactly the same genetic makeup. And of course, it's the genes that run your cellular synthesis. So we're each a little different. Also, we have different diets from our past. We have different health histories. And so it's going to be a variability that you have to kind of search for. What does it take to optimize an individual's health? And I've tried to give you a guidance and the reality that it's not just a cookbook amount, which is one of the real problems in medical practice. You can go to a book and it says, for this disease, take this amount every day. And some people do okay on this. Some people, it's very toxic. Some people don't even get a benefit because each one of us is different for the reasons I've given you. And with nutrition, it's no different. You have to search for what works best. And what this more comprehensive nutrition is that the genes are set much like a thermostat on the wall in your house or climate control in your car. And what do I mean? If it gets too hot, the air conditioning turns on. It gets too cold, the heater turns on. And so you have a comfort zone. Well, in the genes, they're all set not for a comfort zone, but for a balanced, normal zone. And the genes activate to make more of a activity or a substance, or they, through nutrient molecules, they make less. And your genes search for the normal zone. And this is not a new idea. Dr. Hans Selye, the father of human physiology, recognized this decades ago, and he called this point homeostasis, or balance within the cells, which I frequently say is one of the biggest challenges to the human condition. We tend to be too much to the right or too much to the left, or overdo something or underdo something. Finding balance works all the way down to our genes and the multiple functions biochemically with inside the cells, which is a marvelous universe.
Well, that's great information. I know I've got a doctor's appointment coming up soon, and I'm curious to see what my levels are. I'm pretty consistent with my new eating. I usually don't do anything in the morning because I'm just not a breakfast eater, but I've been trying to take 3 scoops every night just to be consistent. If I remember at lunch, then great, but a lot of times I'm running and going, so I'll take all 3 scoops at night, because I know you talked about that at night was when your body recovers or has time, and so much of this, there's all this research or proof that you have about with the athletes using New Eden and having quicker recovery time. You guys can go check out those videos. I know we've had multiple videos showing that research as well. So I love that you're saying we are individuals, and that is how, I mean, that is, when you think about it, it's a little crazy that Big Pharma says, oh no, here, take this one pill for everyone. And my husband's, 200 something pounds, and I'm way less than that. And that would be the same dose is insane. So thank you so much, Dr. Reg. You bring so much great value and information to us every time you come, and I really appreciate you sharing your personal story of how your family came together in such a beautiful way. So we'll see you next time. And any last words before we go? I don't want to.
Well, you came real close to what is on each bottle of New Eden.
Oh,
It says, don't take this on an empty spirit.
Empty spirit. That's it.
And
Yeah.
That's trying to without getting into a lot of detail about the emotional and mind function and all. Is that there is no substitute for happiness and balance in life, and all of that is mental activity of this organ between our ears. It's called the brain, and its function is the mind. And in the mind, we have the spirit, and you want to support that nutritionally. And this is one way to do it: is more optimal nutrition.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys all for joining me in the chat. You guys are the best. I love all your comments, are really helpful. If you guys are interested in getting a subscription of New Eden, I would recommend you do the 6-month subscription. It's an auto ship, and you get a free box of probiotic as well with that. It's also a little bit cheaper, so you can use my link and get a discount in the description. Also share this video if you guys have other people that you'd like to get Dr. Reg and I to get in front of and talk with, or connections with those. We'd love to get this message out to as many people as we can. So send me a DM on that. But otherwise,
let me add another perk to that.
Go ahead.
Phones in and signs up for the automatic order, they not only get the Malagro, which is billions of friendly bacteria that optimize the bacterial activity inside the gut, which is worldwide research that's going on. That's at no cost. You get a 20% discount on the New Eden. And if you will tell them that you're a new sign up, we have books that will give you a copy of it if you sign up for the automatic order. And I recommend the first book I wrote, which is covers about the first 10 years of this 37 years of research. That's the title is The Gift, a Primal Provision. And I think we have limited time in these Zoom calls, but if you're an information junkie, as some people are, you will find that the book, The Gift of Primal Provision, is something that will help you with your decision to have more comprehensive nutrition in your personal and family life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for joining us. That's a great, very generous offer to all my subscribers. So you guys check that out. Sign up for your 6-month subscription and get that free book and the free probiotics. We'll see you guys next time here on The New Normal. Take care.